The honourable member for Macloed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank my colleague from Wild Rose for sharing his time with me and giving his presentation as well. Mr. Speaker, I'm delighted to participate in this important debate today. This is an important discussion simply because pipelines are one of the lifelines of our economy. It gets our energy that we use every day to Canadians across the country. By amending the National Energy Board Act, Bill C-46 proposes a number of new measures to make our pipelines across Canada even safer. Now, Mr. Speaker, for many Canadians, the National Energy Board, the NEB, may not be something that they are very familiar with. So I'd like to take some of my time today to focus on what it does, the role it plays, and some of the changes that we are proposing. Established 56 years ago, the National Energy Board has a very clear mandate to regulate international interprovincial pipelines, power lines, and energy trade. Today, that means overseeing 73,000 kilometers of pipelines and transporting more than $100 billion of natural gas, oil, and petroleum products each year. The NEB boasts a staff of about 450 highly skilled experts in a wide range of experience, from engineers, inspectors, environmental specialists, and economists. This expertise makes it one of the most renowned regulators in the world, and I want to make that very clear. This is one of the most renowned, respected regulators in the world. Equally important, the NEB is independent. It reports through Parliament, but it is independent of it. Quite simply, it operates at arm's length and has full autonomy. The board uses that independence to rigorously apply science-based analysis to every review it conducts. Those reviews, among the most robust in the world, are based on a number of criteria: environment, economic, and social aspects of each and every proposal. Now, Canadians may ask, what is the end goal? What is the overarching goal of the National Energy Board? Well, the goal is to keep our pipelines and the public safe, while at the very same time making sure the environment is protected. If an application is successful, and only then, once it is successful, it is still the subject of further conditions established by the board. To enforce its ruling, the NEB has a number of important powers. It can use administrative penalties to pipeline companies, lower the amount of product allowed through the pipelines, or even shut them down entirely. In some cases, prison sentences to 1, even 5 years can be imposed on violations to the Energy Board Act. Only when the board is confident a pipeline can be built and operated safely does the company earn the right to proceed with that project. However, the board's role does not end there. It oversees the full cycle of a pipeline, from concept to construction to operation to the eventual abandonment of that pipeline. That means ongoing audits, inspections, and emergency exercises. 300 of such compliance actions were conducted in 2013 alone. That these ongoing audits and inspections are important. It also means continuing to raise their standards, requiring more of pipeline companies, imposing stricter conditions, and also conducting rigorous testing. Under this regime, the board has performed exceedingly well. For example, between 2008 and 2013, 99.99% of oil and other products transported through federally regulated pipelines were moved safely. Let me be clear here again, Mr. Speaker, that is an outstanding safety record, a record that any country in the world would be envious of. And it's a wonderful tribute to the work of the National Energy Board and Canada's pipeline operators. Now, while we are gratified, we are certainly not satisfied. Our goal must be no incidents whatsoever. One incident is one incident too many. That is why, as part of our government's plan for responsible resource development, we have already strengthened the NEB, enabling it to increase the annual oil and gas line inspections by 50% and to double the number of annual comprehensive audits. These inspections and audits are critical, proactive measures because then they can identify potential issues and prevent incidents from occurring, which we heard quite a bit about today. The acts in these changes are a good first step, or another step towards ensuring that these accidents do not happen. We have also provided the NEB with new powers to improve prevention by imposing tough monetary penalties against pipeline operators who do not comply with those regulations. These penalties, which range from $25,000 to $100,000 per day per infraction, can also be cumulative should infractions not be addressed. Now with Bill C-46, we go even further. Additional amendments to the National Energy Board Act set a new standard for pipeline safety, ensuring we have world-class protection. New measures will focus on preventing incidents from occurring, improving our ability to prepare and respond to events, and ensuring the polluter pay through a tougher liability and compensation regime. In terms of prevention, we will tap into the expertise of the National Energy Board by seeking the Board's guidance on the best available technologies for constructing and operating pipelines. Now, as new technologies are developed, we want to make sure they are put into practice. We want to ensure the safety of our systems remain evergreen, but also ever on the cutting edge. We are also clarifying the audit and inspection powers of the NEB, as well as the obligations of the pipeline companies to respond to requests arising out of these actions. We are also modernizing the damage prevention regime to further harmonize it with provincial guidelines to prevent accidental damage through digging or other activities. On preparedness and response, we are amending the National Energy Board Act to require companies who operate major pipelines to a minimum of $1 billion in financial resources, a portion of which must be readily available to quickly react to any incident. If a company is unable or unwilling to respond immediately, the NEB will have, in exceptional circumstances, the power to take over response to operations and to cover the costs of those operations from the industry. In other words, the Government of Canada will provide the NEB the authority to respond and provide a financial backstop, in addition to giving the NEB the authority and the funds to complete any cleanup. The bottom line here is, in the unlikely event that there is an incident, response will be swift, it will be thorough, and it will not be paid for out of the pockets of Canadians. This bill also strengthens our system of liability and compensation. Not only will pipeline companies now face unlimited liability when they are found at fault, companies will automatically be responsible for damages to a set amount. This is something called absolute liability. It doesn't matter who or what causes the incident, the company is responsible regardless. In the case of companies operating major pipelines, once again, that liability will be at $1 billion, more than any other country in the world. What's more, this bill will allow the government to pursue pipeline operators for the costs of environmental damage. And it empowers the NEB to order reimbursement of cleanup costs incurred by either government or individuals. Finally, the NEB will be able to recover its own costs by stepping in to coordinate a response. These are among some of the most sweeping changes to the National Energy Board Act since it was passed in 1959. This is a clear indication of how committed this government is to ensuring Canada can safely transport the energy Canadians need and use every day. Mr. Speaker, Canadians understand the energy sector is critical as part of our economy. It provides jobs and opportunities from coast to coast to coast. They know how important the energy sector is to our quality of lives and how important it is to our communities. But of course, they also want reassurance that our environment will be protected, and our government shares those priorities. That is why I'm bringing this bill forward, and I urge all the members of this House to support this piece of legislation. Thank you.
Question et commentaire, l'honorable député de Beauport-Limoilou.
Oui, merci, Monsieur le Président. Je remercie mon collègue pour son discours. Un des aspects qui est quand même troublant par rapport à ce projet de loi, parce que je conviens avec lui qu'il y a quand même une amélioration dans le principe de pollueur-payeur, bien qu'on soit à mi-chemin, c'est que, vous savez, Monsieur le Président, les pipelines de petite capacité là, dans lesquelles circulent moins de 250 000, attendez un peu, 250 000 barils de pétrole par jour, ben, se retrouvent à être exclus de la responsabilité. C'est quand même assez troublant parce que c'est le genre de pipeline, souvent des petites sections, qui sont quand même les plus courants, entre autres en milieu urbain ou à proximité de milieux urbains. Alors pourquoi ne pas avoir inclus ce genre de pipeline à plus faible débit au même titre que les pipelines à grand débit?
The honourable member for Macloed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I appreciate that question from my colleague, and apologize, translation was a little bit behind. But I appreciate his question, and part of the reason why that wasn't included is we wanted to focus on the major pipelines. These are the ones that are going to be the most damaging to the environment if something to happen, and that's why that $1 billion liability was placed there. That far exceeds any other regime in the world. We took a look at the numbers, and the average cleanup should, unfortunately, anything ever happen, is between $20 and $50 million. So this $1 billion is more than enough to cover the vast majority of any accident that would happen. But in the case specifically to what my colleague was saying, by having these changes to the Act, there will be funds there with the National Energy Board that they can step in and address some of these cleanups should there be a spill with dollars that are going to be as part of this program. And I hope that answers his question.
Questions and comments? The honourable member for Winnipeg North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to go to that large pipeline that could have and should have at least been given more attention from this government, and that is the Keystone XL pipeline. Part of the issue where this government has been very found in need or in wanting is the issue of the environment and what the government is actually doing to protect the environment, to deal with issues related to security and safety of our pipelines and so forth. In fact, Mr. Speaker, one of the Prime Minister's greatest failures is not being able to work with the President of the United States, Mr. Obama, in terms of trying to get it onto the right track in regards to the whole Keystone project. And I'm wondering if the member were to reflect on the need for this legislation has been there for a number of years now. Why does he believe that the government has taken so long, on the eve of an election which is only months away, and here we are at second reading, as my colleague has pointed out, there's a very good chance that this legislation will not even be passed and given royal assent in time before the next election. Why does he believe the government has taken so long in terms of just presenting this legislation to the House?
The honourable member for Macloed.
Well, I want to thank my colleague for his question, and I don't recall anything in this piece of legislation about Mr. Obama or about the Keystone Pipeline. This is about specifically pipeline safety. But we can go off track if he likes, but I'll like to bring it back to what we're talking about here. And I think the answer to his question is we've had a world-class safety regime in place. They may not like the fact, but the fact is we have a 99.99% safety rating already. So it goes to show that we have had an unbelievable safety record. But that doesn't mean that we have to stop there. Like I said in my speech, one incident is one incident too many. We want to make sure that there's every avenue available to ensure that should, unfortunately, there ever be a spill with a major pipeline, that there are regimes in place to ensure that these are addressed, and that's why that $1 billion liability was put in place. So should anything ever happen in the future, that there is a strong safety net there to ensure that these things are cleaned up. Thank you.